Patrick Chapin in Denver for the StarCityGames.com Open Series. We're watching round 3 get started right here with Piazza on the left versus Dustin Gault on the right. And looks like Dustin's leading with an Inquisition of Kozilek.
Dustin's playing an interesting mono black control deck.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
Versus Piazza playing the part of the villain.
Yeah.
Now the Inquisition has revealed that Brett has 2 Condemns and a Stoneforge Mystic. So Dustin's taking his time writing it down, but surely he's going to take the Stoneforge Mystic.
Exactly. Now, it's interesting because Condemn has sort of fallen out of favor, and Gideon definitely has fallen out of favor in the Caw-Blade list. So this looks like either, like kind of a throwback to the older Caw-Blade, which, he runs Day of Judgment main deck.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unorthodox card choices, but one of the things these Caw-Blade players are doing is adapting their deck every week, so that people never know what tricks they have, what things they have next, So now, Brett still has a Jace and a Gideon in his hand, and I think he's only 1 land short of being able to play all his spells, or being able to play Jace anyway. So his primary plan now is to just try to set up, use the Condemns to buy himself time if he needs to, drop a Jace, which is traditionally a problem for Mono Black, and try to ride that to victory. Rips a Sword of Fire, a War and Peace.
Yeah, it does look like Fire and Ice in it, and the glare there.
So now Dustin's Mono Black deck has a lot of exciting new Phyrexia cards in it, like Phyrexian Obliterator and Lash Ride.
Lash Ride is definitely. I think he has a Lash Ride in his hand.
Yeah, so he's definitely got some of the new exciting ways to get paid. Plus, he's actually using Myers Toll for additional discard.
He's just played a Mimic Vat, which is a card that I feel like doesn't get. I mean, it's a strong card and just doesn't see as much play as it probably could in a different metagame.
Yeah, and Mimic Vat is traditionally at its best in these black decks because of the sheer amount of creature kill they have that actually sends creatures to the graveyard. Now he can't really take advantage too much of a dead Stoneforge Mystic or a Squadron Hawk. However, it does provide a never-ending stream of potential blockers and attackers with haste, for that matter. And where it really shines is when used on his own guys, such as his own Vampire Hexmage or Grave Titan.
Yeah, that's a 3-mana Grave Titan seems good.
And 4 Vampire Hexmages is kind of interesting. He's got a little bit more action against Jace than a lot of people would. Yeah.
And there's a Phyrexian Obliterator hitting the board from Dustin.
Well, the thing is, with Brett having 2 Condemns, the Obliterator isn't actually threatening to do all that much just yet. However, the nice thing is that it sitting in play kind of ties up that white mana every turn.
Yeah. Not only that, but it holds Brett. If Brett were to even get a Stoneforge or something on board, it's gonna hold that creature back.
Or force him to go get a sort of Feast and Famine.
Exactly. So there's Lash Writhe.
Dustin is doing real big things. He's punishing Brett for missing his 4th land drop. Both Phyrexian Obliterator and Lash Writhe, with a Mimic Vat on the table. Brett is falling way behind, and Brett doesn't actually have very much Divine Offering action in his main deck. He only has 1 Divine Offering. So, with only 1 Divine Offering, Mimic Vat in particular is going to end up being very, very, very problematic going long. I mean, maybe he finds a way to recover from.
He did have the mana leak there for the Lash Ride.
Okay, so he's buying himself a little bit of time, but he's still got to deal with the fact that Obliterator is tying up his white mana, and the Mimic Vat's going to beat him in the long run. Yeah.
Brett does happen to pull the 4th land there, but it is a Celestial Colonnade, so
it's going to have to wait again.
Yeah. So on board, Brett has Tectonic Edge, Seachrome Coast, Island, and a tapped Celestial Colonnade.
As well as a Sword of War and Peace.
Sword of War and Peace, yeah. Dustin has 6 Swamps, a Mimic Vat, and a Phyrexian Obliterator. And he also knows Brett has
Gideon.
Condemn and Gideon in hand.
Yeah, 2 Condemns, a Jace, and Gideon in hand.
Yeah.
Now, Dustin's actually bringing back Corrupt. This one a black deck? He's got some pretty sweet Swamps Matters types cards. He's really got to try to get a 2nd threat down on the table so that he can avoid Brett just going Jace, Bounce Your Obliterator. Now, it looks like he does have the Vampire Hexmage in hand, though, but he wants to make sure it doesn't get countered, because as soon as if Jace hits the table, he can play a Vampire Hexmage, remove the counters from the Jace, and put the Hexmage on the Mimic Vat, locking out the Gideon in the future.
Yeah.
Oh, he plays it now. Of course, because he realizes Brett couldn't have drawn another mana like he drew a land.
Oh, yeah.
So now Brett's last card, Day of Judgment. This is a very timely Day of Judgment, but he's still going to have to deal with the the Mimic Vat.
Yeah, it's definitely Brett's back against the wall right now.
This is tough because now with the Vampire Hexmage successfully on the table and the Mimic Vat in play, Brett is pretty much locked out of Jace's and Gideon's
Planeswalkers
for the rest
entirely.
of the game.
Yeah, so he's gonna cast the Day of Judgment.
I mean, obviously his hope here is that somehow the Obliterator ends up on the Mimic Vat.
Yeah.
I predict Dustin is not so foolish.
If he thought about it at all. Well, yeah.
Wow. It appears that that is the pump fake. Did he not enter? He did not have the Day of Judgment enter the stack?
Yeah, that's interesting. Certainly looked like it was.
M10 rules. M10 rules, you know.
Yeah.
Just click Alt-U.
Yeah. Yeah, Control-Z.
So now, how is he going to get an advantage in this game? I mean, he does have the Sword of War and Peace going. So, I mean, is
I wouldn't
his
say
hope...
he's got it going, exactly. He's not doing anything.
Well, I mean, maybe if he gets a Stoneforge Mystic and he can put both the Sword of War and Peace and the Sword of Feast and Famine on the same Stoneforge Mystic, he can provide it, you know, he can make a threat that is both unblockable and immune to possible future kill from Dustin. I mean, at this point, he's got to hope that Dustin starts drawing some more land.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so there's the Day of Judgment.
Goes into the tank, comes out with, doesn't lose this turn.
Yeah.
And the Hexmage does, in fact, end up on the Mimic Vat, much to Brett's chagrin.
Another swamp for Dustin.
Now, Dustin looks like has plenty of action in his hands. You know? I mean, is that a Mind Sludge? If that is, it's gonna...
Ooh,
no,
there's a Vampire
Hexmage.
Nighthawk. Or Hex...
No, that's a
Nighthawk,
Nighthawk,
right, yeah.
Leaving that Mimic Vat open to ensure to lock out any possible Planeswalker assaults.
Yeah, basically all Brett can do is play those...
As one shot.
play those as basically sorcery speed. You know, something. He's not going to be able to...
5-mana Assassinate and a 4-mana Brainstorm.
Brainstorm, right. Alright, so...
Dustin making a Hexmage on the end step, just for the extra attacker.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not going to go away until Dustin's end step of his own turn.
I want to welcome everybody to the mini live scan. First off, if you guys are just checking in,
Dustin drawing another swamp. Now that's what Brett needs. I mean, he's really behind on this game, so he's going to need Dustin to draw quite a few land to be able to catch up. But the best thing that can happen here is for Brett to find his one Divine Offering to hit that Mimic Vat.
Yeah. If Dustin has any removal whatsoever in his hand for a Stoneforge Mystic, though, it's going to be...
And I believe he has a Go for the Throat.
Yeah. I mean, he's running, what, he's got 4 main deck? Go for the Throat?
Only 2.
Only 2? Okay.
Right. Yeah, he's got actually Consuming Vapors, Gatekeeper of Malak. He's got 1 Consuming Vapors, 3 Gatekeeper of Malak, 2 Go for the Throat, and 2 Corrupts.
So we get a... So looks like he activated and blocked with the Colonnade, blocked the Vampire Nighthawk, and condemned the Hexmage?
No.
Or
He
the-
condemned...
the
No, he
other way
blocked
around.
the Hexmage.
Okay, that seems to make more sense.
He tried to, anyway.
Yeah. That's what... Okay, he
And
hit it
drew
with...
the Go for the Throat.
Okay, that's what it was. I saw it in the graveyard, and I didn't see the Go for the Throat.
Yeah, the Hexmage, or the Nighthawk's on the bottom. Dustin drawing another land. So, I mean, at least Brett's got a little bit more action. Problem is, he still doesn't have a way to fight through that Mimic Vat yet. Another Jace the Mind Sculptor. Brett knows it's immediately time.
Yeah, just to... I think he's just 4 mana Brainstorm right now.
Well, yeah, he's got to try to find... He's got to dig and try to find a Divine Offering or a Stoneforge.
I think he sees Squadron Hawk land.
No, at least Squadron Hawk can give him some board presence and makes his next Jace more of an ancestral, more of a concentrate than a Brainstorm. I mean, it's possible. I mean, Squadron Hawk was Sword of War and Peace. I mean, that's a plan in itself.
Exactly. That's actually gets around the Hexmage
Right, so now Brett taps out to play Squadron Hawk, leaving himself with 6 land, no more man lands though. And then he has a Hawk in play, and he's going to have 3 more Hawks in his hand, with both a Jace and a Sword of War and Peace on the table. Hexmage comes down again for Dustin, who has 9 swamps, and then Mimic Vat with the Hexmage on it still. Mostly just drawing air, mostly drawing just swamps.
It's exactly what Brett needs to get back into this game.
There's a lot of things that Dustin can draw here to just put it away really fast, though. You know, I mean, Liliana Vess, or even Corrupt does an awful lot of damage right now. Grave Titan.
Yeah, well, Corrupt is, what is that, 9 swamps he's got there?
Yeah, he's got to start progressing things. Yeah, he's got to progress things a little bit soon, because otherwise, those Hawks with Sword of War and Peace are going to start getting so much life. I mean, Brett is actually, you know, in a position to grind his way back out of this.
Yeah.
Just showing the resiliency of these Cowboy decks.
I think we're going to see that Jace go away pretty soon.
Well, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
But, so a second Hexmage coming down. Now, this is an interesting play. Is his plan to attack the Jace with the Hexmages, so that, I mean, that doesn't get him anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think he's just trying to power through damage.
Yeah, I think
he sneak in 4 damage while he can.
He figures, okay, either I get through with 4 or 2 and kill your Hawk, and then kill your Jace. Either way, he's killing the Jace. You know, the Jace goes, and he's just going to try to get in for as much as he can. So yeah, he did get in for 4 there. Brett needs that Hawk, so Dustin giving him an opportunity to lose the Hawk. What is that?
Corrupt.
Okay.
That's the alternate artwork. Corrupt. That is.
So that's 10.
Wow, knocking Brett to 4 and leaving Dustin with just 1 card in hand, try to just do the best he can to dodge that Sword of War and Peace. But unfortunately, the Sword of War and Peace is going to gain Brett a good 6 life, 7 life next turn.
Yeah, probably 7.
I mean, this game is going to start going out of control for Brett.
Brett should be at 4, and right? Okay.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, just momentarily. Yeah, just for a few moments. Yeah. So.
This is definitely one of the classical problems with Mono Black, is that you really don't have that much library manipulation. You know, you don't get Preordain. I mean, you have Sign and Blood, and not a ton else.
That's about it. Yeah.
And it's tough when you're just drawing off the top, and the other people get Jaces and Preordains.
Liliana is. She's library manipulation, but.
Oh my goodness, the interaction between Squadron Hawk and Sword of War and Peace is just so good.
Yeah. It's Sword of War and Peace. I feel like people, the opinions that people have had of that card from the beginning, seems like people hated it and loved it, and then
it's been as different as War and Peace, you know.
Very nice, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some people who thought it was the best card in the set,
mm-hmm.
and then there's some other people who thought that it was terrible. And both are obviously wrong. It's obviously, I mean, it's just a good card.
Exactly.
It's not as good as Batterskull, but it's got purposes. It's got niches. It does an awful lot. I mean, like right here, we just witnessed a pretty big swing.
Huge light swing, yeah.
Now, interestingly, Dustin has an 11th swamp in his hand as his only card. So if he draws his other Corrupt, he can end it right here.
Yeah. Assuming Brett doesn't have a counterspell for it. Brett playing 3 Mana League, 3 Spell Pierce. We've seen one of the Mana Leagues.
It looks like Brett committing another Squadron Hawk to the table.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, that's his way of...
He's got to protect himself against things like Consuming Vapors, or even just a single removal spell,
mm-hmm.
you know, like a Gatekeeper or something.
Yeah, his way back into this game is definitely not through those Planeswalkers. Although the 4 Mana Brainstorm helped take him to that Squadron Hawk.
Yeah, Dustin needs to get some action going pretty quickly here.
So what does he get here? And
definitely a spell.
Yeah, it was not land.
Yes.
Was it a Revoker? I'm trying to figure out what it was. We just saw the art kind of flashed really quick. Is that Myers Toll?
It is Myers Toll.
I forgot what that even does.
It's like like he gets to look at his hand
mm-hmm.
equal to a number of cards. It's like a blackmail where he gets to look at a number of cards of Brett's choice equal to the number of swamps that Dustin controls.
So
choose one exactly. He gets to look at one of 10 cards in Dustin's hand, or Brett's hand, and make him discard 1.
Not the strongest
And there's
play
kind
right
of a, well, I mean, yeah, it's certainly not the best card you could draw, but I think it's the strongest play to play it. Like if that's the card you draw,
Oh,
you gotta
yeah,
get it out of
yeah.
your hand.
I mean, it's not the strongest card for him to have.
Oh, no
Drawn at the
question.
moment.
No question. So his choices here. I mean, there's Day of Judgment. In case, like maybe he wants to take the Day of Judgment in case he draws a Grave Titan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe you take Jace just to slow down the card drawing. Although I think you got to give him the Jace. I mean, you have Hex
Yeah.
Mage. That's one of the few things you have going for you. You got another Condemn, which will be annoying when the Grave Titan hits, but doesn't mean anything if he sells the Day of Judgment.
Yeah. It seems to me, I mean, you leave him with the Planeswalkers. Let him play, you know, his sorcery speed one-shot spells here, but because you have a way to deal with those. Then again, that leaves him open to Brett drawing the Divine Offering and then just wrecking him with Planeswalkers.
Yeah, but he can't be worried about Brett drawing the random cards right now. I mean, he's so far behind the gun. I mean, drawing 5 land out of the last 6 turns, or 4 land out of the last 5 turns has just been brutal.
So it looks like, did he take the Condemn?
Looks like he did.
So, in with both Hawks for Brett. One with the Sword of War and Peace.
It's interesting that Dustin chose to keep the 11th Swamp in his hand, making himself take 1 extra damage.
Yeah.
He feels that taking 1 extra damage here is worth hiding the information.
Yeah, the bluff.
I mean, what is he bluffing? He's getting hit with these things. What could he possibly be bluffing? He clearly doesn't have a creature where he would play it. He doesn't have a removal spell where he would play it.
Yeah,
So I think this is just a bad bluff. I think you just got to play it out of your hand just to save 1 life. Jace at the Mind Sculptor, hitting the table again.
Yep, the 4-mana Brainstorm.
It's better than Brainstorm though. It's Concentrate because Brett has the Squadron Hawks going.
That's true, yeah.
Brett carefully deciding what cards to put back, which he's only going. Looks like just he shuffled back 2 land, or no, 1 land because he's just going to play Squadron Hawk and go get the Hawk he shuffled away, and shuffle away that land so that he doesn't draw it.
I was gonna say, I think he kept the Squadron Hawk in his hand. So
No, he kept 1 Squadron Hawk and he shuffled it. Did he not?
Yeah, he's got the other one in his hand. He just shuffled his deck, shuffled his library.
It's interesting. Why not just have the extra card in your hand so that you gain extra life from Sword of War and Peace?
Yeah, I'm not sure why he did that either.
It may have just been that he was thinking, I don't need these land, and
Right, he wanted to shuffle away both lands rather than shuffle away a Hawk, I guess. Doesn't seem like it matters too much, but
every point
an
matters.
interesting play.
We'll see if somebody ends up on 1 life. You know,
Yeah.
Dustin threw away a point. Brett threw away a point.
Dustin's
Magic's off
thrown
in a
away a
game.
point twice, so he's thrown. Or no, that's right. He had played a land that turn already. So
Magic is off in a game of inches.
So here we have the Mimic, the Hex Mage copy, or the Mimic Vat copy of Hex Mage. That's what I'm trying to say here.
It's interesting that Sword of War and Peace is granting protection from white right now, because it makes it so that Dustin can't actually kill a Squadron Hawk, put it under the vat, and block.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting interaction.
Dustin taking 2 damage from the Sword of War and Peace now. Insisting to not play that swamp.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Definitely not sure why he would do that at this point. What does he have? 3rd Squadron Hawk added to the board for Brett. Dustin, EOT, make another Hex Mage copy with the Mimic Vat.
And another swamp for Dustin.
So this is exactly what you were saying earlier in the game, that Brett needed Dustin to just keep drawing lands.
Absolutely. And one of the problems with Mono Black compared to Callblade is, I mean, the Callblade deck has Tectonic Edges and Celestial Colonnades, so its lands do things if you get a little flooded.
Whereas
Mono Black,
perfect example, there's the Colonnade doing some work right there, blocking the Hex Mage.
Brett back up to 20 life.
Yeah, the life swing that's happened just in this game. Brett was at 4 at one point, and Dustin was
dropping
in the 30s,
to 3. Dustin dropping to 3? Not sure how relevant it would be if he would have been at 6 this time from just not taking extra damage, but
so
making another Hex Mage. Gatekeeper is going to be too little too late.
Yeah, nothing he can do there. So,
Not with this low life.
going into game 2. Brett takes game 1 with...
So first, what does Brett have in his sideboard for this matchup?
Alright, so Brett has an additional Divine Offering for any Mimic Vats, Lash Writhes that he saw. What else does he hit in that deck? Anything?
No, but he doesn't
anything.
know. I mean, you
Right, exactly. I mean,
you
that's
played against
enough.
somebody who played both Flash Ride and Mimic
Yeah.
Vat against you. You don't know how many they have.
Right, and that seems like enough to...
And he has the Revoker too, which can name a Planeswalker
Right.
or a sword.
So I think, the Divine Offering seems relevant. An additional Spell Pierce seems good against the...
See, I'm not
Corrupt,
convinced.
but-
See, I'm not I mean,
You're not convinced about the...
you might want it just if you were on the play, but on the draw, I'm not so sure because you're going to get hit with cards like Inquisition and Kozilek, and they're going to see it coming and then they're going to play around it. And the way these matchups play out, I mean, you don't want Spell Pierce against Callblade, even though they have a lot of sorceries and instants and Planeswalkers.
That logic definitely makes sense. The player draw thing is really what...
Yeah, I think you could justify it on the play if you just really want to counter a discard spell, but it's definitely hurting him that he doesn't have access to Mental Misstep here. But it looks like Journey to Nowhere might be another option. I mean, he already saw Obliterator and Lash Ride. Now, Lash Ride isn't the greatest target to hit, but I mean, and there's Nighthawk too. You got to think that Journey might be at least an option, you know.
Day of Judgment and Tumble Magnet probably be the only other...
See, I don't think you're going to want... I mean, I don't think you want all this spot removal against the black deck because... and maybe you want Tumble Magnet, maybe you want some of this, but you don't want to load up on too many reactive cards. I mean, as we saw, the way that Brett won is by being proactive.
Yeah.
You know. Meanwhile, Dustin has access to Duress, which is particularly nice for hitting things like Batterskull or Sword of War and Feast of Famine after getting, Stoneforge Mystic.
Right.
And I'm not sure if he brings in Revoker in this matchup. I mean, maybe he just figures that since Revoker can name, the Colonnade or the sword, one of the swords, or possibly even the Batterskull or the Jace or the Gideon. And there are a lot of good targets, so you might just bring in the Revokers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
Yeah, it seems like there's definitely a lot of targets for it, and it, now going into game 2, knowing what he's playing against, knowing what those targets, what's in the deck that he could name, seems like and it's another creature. I mean, another thing that can hold a Lash Writhe if the germ's gone.
He has access to Nantuka Shade, but I don't think he's going to bring it in. He already saw that his opponent's playing with Day of Judgment, Gideon, and 2 Condemns. That's not where you want a Nantuka Shade.
Life's Finale is an interesting card.
Yeah, I got a feeling that this isn't the matchup for Life's Finale. Life's Finale is more of a, I'm going to kill all your guys, I'm going to kill your Primeval Titan and search your deck for the other 3 Primeval Titans.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting choice. I haven't seen that a lot. At least I don't think I've seen it in Standard yet at all, but...
it's a good card. I mean, there's a lot of good Black Wrath variants right now, between Ratchet Bomb, Black Sun Zenith, Consume the Meek, and Life's Finale. And so they end up all occupying some of that similar space, whereas if there was a card like Damnation, everybody would just play that.
Right. Some interesting 1-ofs in his sideboard, though. Sadistic Sacrament.
Enslave.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely has a lot of anti-Valakut action in his sideboard.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I guess he must feel like that matchup is a tougher matchup for him.
And maybe he was just anticipating a rise in Valakut this week, but then again, perhaps he is a week early.
Yeah, a week or 2 early, exactly. Living in the future.
See, keep in mind, when I talk about living in the future, I mean, you don't live in the future, you live in the present. You could be from the future.
Okay.
And you could visit the future.
Fair, that's that. Yeah.
I mean, every good time traveler knows that sometimes you hop in the DeLorean and, check it out, but I don't think you want to live in the future. You got to be very present, in the moment.
Living in the future makes the future the present and makes all of your future information irrelevant.
I think it makes you a daydreamer. But it's definitely good to have a very futuristic look, because in Magic so often the advantages come from anticipating what people are going to be doing next week,
Speaking of DeLoreans, anybody who's in the area and is not at this event, you certainly can show up and watch about the most famous DeLorean there is.
Yeah, I mean,
Back to the Future, they're showing it on the Jumbotron tonight.
Yeah, like I mean, the SCG Open is actually taking place in the Bronco Stadium, Mile High Stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, and this venue is unbelievable. It's so beautiful, and then they're actually having Back to the Future playing on the Jumbotron in the stadium at 9 p.m.
Yeah,
Just kind of fun, you know.
Absolutely, that's just one of my favorite series of all time.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that coming up pretty soon? Like in the next
2015.
Is it 2015? Yeah, I was gonna say it's only a couple years away before our hoverboards.
Yeah.
I'm excited, man. Dude, don't hoverboards look like so much fun?
They do. Then they're the hot pink hoverboards.
See, I was gonna probably go with more of a blue or base black, but
Yeah.
I could see hot pink too.
Hot
You know, then. Man, it drove me nuts when I was a kid when one of the producers did that interview where he talked about how the hoverboards were real and they were going to market them. I was the most excited little kid ever.
Yeah.
You know, because
I remember that too.
Oh my gosh, it was a hard fact of life to figure out that they were just having a little bit of fun.
Yeah, it's really kind of they really teased us because it's the little kids that believed that, and it's the little kids that suffered from that kind of thing.
Well, suffered, grew up a little.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to lose your innocence.
I'm kind of excited for the Pizza Hut pizzas that come in a little wrapper that look like cookie size, and you put them in the oven and press a button, and it just goes ding, and it's done. And it's
sure.
completely hydrated, and the fax machines. They may be fax machines in the future that just, you're fired or whatever.
So, is Dustin going to 6 here, or is he just deciding? It looks like he is going to 6.
Yeah, definitely going to 6.
That's definitely not what you want against the Callblade matchup.
No. Callblade is one of the best unmulligan decks there are, but mono black control not
Callblade
so
is one of the best decks to mulligan to 5 there is, or mulligan to 4. If I had to mulligan to 4 with a deck, Callblade would be the deck. Certainly would not be Dragonstorm. Alright, so what kind of cards is Dustin looking for? He wants a mix, right? He wants like maybe 3, like his dream hand is like 3 swamps, an early creature, a removal spell or a discard spell, and a bigger threat,
Yeah. So Dustin just leads with a swamp, and Brett leads with a preordain.
And it looks like the Stoneforge Mystic was the second one down. He's going to slide it to the top, ship the land to the bottom, and preordain doing what it does.
Alright, so Dustin has his second.
Now this is
swamp,
interesting. Dustin has a Revoker in his hand.
And he chose not
He didn't
to
play it because he
yeah.
wants to wait and see what Brett goes to get with his Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah. There's
You
the
can tell,
Stoneforge
yeah,
Mystic,
Dustin has definitely played this matchup. This is his plan. Like, he has to, he figures, I just want to name their equipment, and,
depending on what he gets, if he gets a Batterskull, do you name Stoneforge?
probably.
Yep, there's Batterskull.
Yeah, you probably have to name Stoneforge if he gets the Batterskull, and then, obviously, you can name a sword if he doesn't. But.
Gives you time to draw in a discard spell for that Batterskull if it's even going to be relevant at all. So, Brett indeed gets the Batterskull, shifts the turn back to Dustin, and Dustin plays a third swamp and is currently in the tank, and he does play a Revoker.
Now, Dustin doesn't have a lot of cards in his hand. Looks like most of them are swamps.
So, can we find out what he named with Revoker? I mean,
sure, it's Stoneforge
Mystic.
Yeah, there's
just like the confirmation on things.
I mean, it's possible. Maybe he just names Batterskull and he's just going for the Super Jedi mind trick. But Brett is a veteran. I do not have Brett.
Okay.
He named Batterskull?
Okay.
Then perhaps he just has a removal spell in his hand to kill the Batterskull. I guess. As long as he can kill the germ, I mean, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, it just makes things a lot more difficult for him, I think. There's a Mimic That. At least I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
Yeah. It's definitely, one of the best possible cards you could draw here. But, doesn't look like he actually has an answer to a germ in his hand.
Yeah, it seemed like...
And we'll see. We'll see what his plan is.
Yeah. So, Brett.
Brett dropping Sword of Feast and Famine to surprise him.
Yeah, so Brett plays Sword of Feast and Famine off of the Stoneforge Mystic. A surprise Sword of Feast and Famine, that is. I guess maybe Dustin should have maybe kind of expected that, in that Brett searched for the Batterskull.
No, I think he'd often just search for the Batterskull anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, because the sword doesn't do you that much good. If he thinks Dustin might have a ton of removal and Inquisitions, so getting the sword doesn't do as much as getting a Batterskull, which is going to be a powerful threat. I mean, how does Dustin stop a Batterskull long term?
Right.
He can't really. He just keeps rebuying,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Dustin He's fighting the good fight, but he would appear to... now that there's a Sword of Feast and Famine on the Stoneforge Mystic, he would appear to be a mile away.
At least the Revoker's not black.
And it has been journeyed.
Never mind, because I was thinking he can at least chump block and put it on the Mimic Vat, but not. Brett shuts down that line of play.
Brett untapping his land, and is that Jace the Mind Sculptor? Why not?
Yeah.
Alright, so Brett using the power of Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor to create a dominating presence on the board. Dustin...
this
Dustin's
doesn't look good at all.
Classic Fate Seal you. At least shipped.
Yeah.
Whenever they ship, you know you at least...
You have a live draw.
You're fighting, you know. Alright, so I guess the first thing you got to do here is gatekeeper the Stoneforge Mystic and buy yourself a little bit of time before you have to discard all your cards. Then you have to draw a Vampire Hex Mage and go after that Jace.
Yeah, and he doesn't have either.
And then you're going to have to draw an answer to the Batterskull. And you're going to have to hope that each of these Jace Brainstorms does nothing.
That's a lot of hoping.
On field 5, Prom King and Banditos and Scott on field 6. Field 7 is the Slim Jim and the Average Joe. Field 8, the Bros and the Force. On field 9,
what's that?
Apparently the card that was Fate Sealed to the bottom was a Hex Mage.
On field 10, Quick Sticks and the Bulldog.
Brett, in anticipation that this was Dustin's line of drawing 4 different 2-outers in a row, well, Brett draws nothing.
Alright, so Brett gets in with the Stoneforge Mystic with the Sword of Feast and Famine.
Dustin with almost no permanents or cards in hand. Brett with the best sword, the best planeswalker, the best creature. About to drop the best equipment.
He's got the best basic land.
He also has Island in addition to his planes.
Oh, nice.
Oh, he has Gideon too now? Why not?
He's got Batterskull in hand.
Yeah, why play it? Why play all your cookies at once? Why play it? Why play it all out? Why not hold up the... Or are we kidding? Dustin is a goner.
Yeah, not looking good for the mono black control list.
You see, this mono black control list is a good example of the type of thing that would suffer if Stoneforge Mystic was banned. Because, I mean, the mono black deck has so much trouble with Jace, but a lot of the things, they can be set up to beat Stoneforge Mystic, you know?
Yeah,
their trouble is trying to beat Stoneforge Mystic and Jace at the same time. That and the fact that they don't have the library manipulation that blue to white decks do.
Yeah, a lot of people would claim things like all mono black needs is Cabal Coffers, but it seems like that's not.
I don't think that's really their issue. I mean, I think Lash Ride and Phyrexian Obliterator are a good step in the right direction. And there's a lot of good discard, and there's some sweet removal. Right now, they're just being overpowered. I mean, you see, like, Dustin's playing the Hex Mages to fight the Jaces, and he's playing the discard spells, and he's playing the Revokers, and he's just getting overpowered because when you don't have the right answer at the exact right time, you know, the Stoneforge Mystic or the Jace gives you such an advantage. And that's the game.
Yeah, Dustin tried to fight back. He played a Revoker, likely naming Jace.
But the trouble is he's getting attacked on so many different metrics.
Yeah, I mean, he played Revoker. Brett dismembered the Revoker, so he put the Revoker on the Mimic Vat, and then Brett Divine offering the Mimic Vat and just kind of rubbing it in.
I mean, it's just the right play.
I mean, yeah, exactly. He just really gave Dustin no chance.
So we see that's 2 challengers today. Red-green ramp and mono black control. So far the score is Villains 2, Heroes 0.
And that's 4 games to 0 as well.
That is correct, 4 games to 0.
So this Caw-Blade deck is the real deal then.
It's possible. We'll see who's next up to bat, next to the plate, trying to contest the dominance here.
Right, the next challenger to take on the champion.
Now, have we seen any Splinter Twin decks yet? I mean, those are allegedly the people who claim that they can beat the Caw-Blade Menace. Yeah,
I mean, we certainly haven't seen them on camera yet. I definitely saw one in a feature match earlier in round 1. I'm not sure Not sure if he won. It was definitely, it was, I want to say, I'm trying to remember what he was playing against, but it may have just been Caw-Blade versus Splinter Twin. Actually, I think it was the Twin Blade deck. That's
where they're mixing the Splinter Twin combo.
Yeah, they're throwing the combo, the Splinter Twin combo, Splinter Twin Exarch, into the Caw-Blade list. Basically, in place of the Squadron Hawks, they're playing the Exarchs, and then they're kind of just shaving other spells here and there for the Splinter Twin, and it just seems like such a strong idea, but it waters down the mana base.
Right, I mean, it's one of those classic things of just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily ought to, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's very powerful, and maybe it does have the advantage in the mirror. We'll see. So far, it's looked like nobody's been able to unseat just straight blue-white, consistent, you know?
It seems like the best version, and it's consistently done that, where it's like, it started blue-white, Jerry shifted it to splash red.
I mean, different. There was the Spark Blade deck,
right,
obviously Dark Blade, but now with the advent of Batterskull, I mean, the card quality is so high, you don't even need the discard spells. You know, like you end up just with Divine Offering and Dismember. I mean, Dismember solves all your. I mean, one of the big things the Black did for you before was give you Dismember. I mean, not Dismember, to give you Go for the Throat or whatnot to try to combat creatures. And the discard spells helped attack people's equipment. But now that it's safe to main deck Divine Offering and safe to main deck Dismember, now you just rather have more consistent mana.
Yeah, well, the thing, that's kind of where I was going a little while ago with the Dismember discussion. Like, is Dismember going to be kind of more and more, I guess, are we going to see more and more Dismembers as things go on? It just seems like such a card that...
I don't know if we could see more. I mean, we're already seeing a ton of Dismember. But I think we're going to continue to see the amount of Dismember even when the formats change. I mean, we're going to see a ton of Dismember in Block. There's a ton of Dismember in Standard. After the rotations, there's still going to be a ton of Dismember in Standard. We're going to see Dismember in Extended. We're going to see Dismember in Modern, and we've already been seeing it in Legacy.
It's in Legacy.
I mean, and I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see a little bit of it in Vintage. I mean, 1 mana to kill a creature, and it's colorless.
Yeah.
You know, like, for instance, a Stacks deck or something, some mono brown deck could have just a 1 mana removal spell.
Yeah, it seems like such a strong card, and at the cost of just 4 life, like that's really...
I mean, Snuff Out was a really good card, but you had to actually play Black.
Yeah, you needed that swamp.
And this card dodges Gaddock. It's even cheap enough so that you can, I mean...
Big Daddy Gaddy?
Yeah, I mean, Brian Kibler, I think, did a very good... Yeah, Big Daddy Gaddy. Brian Kibler, I think, said it very, very well, that as big of a mistake as Batterskull seems to be contextually because of Stoneforge Mystic, long term, it may be the Dismember that ends up having the biggest complication to Magic because of the fact that it's creature removal for people who are never supposed to have it.
Yeah.
You know, like a mono green deck can just have one of the best removal spells in the format.
Yeah.
Mono blue, you know, and the only mono red decks can kill a Core Firewalker, no trouble, no trouble at all. Phyrexian Crusader, not even relevant anymore for the most part in Standard. You know, he went from being one of the cool breakout cards to now everybody just kills it anyway.
You just kill it, right?
Yep.
So, Dismember is...
it's definitely one of those cards that just having a play set of it is going to pay tons of dividends, though, just because it's the type of card that you're going to have tons of uses for it, and it's going to sort of be like Lightning Bolt was way back in the mid-90s, where people were just playing with 4 toughness creatures because everybody plays Lightning Bolt.
Do you think the 6 toughness creature?
Consecrated Sphinx, one of the and they were even saying at the Pro Tour, the #1 reason, I mean, don't get me wrong, Consecrated Sphinx is an awesome card, great way to draw cards, blocks the Phoenix, blocks Koth, but one of the reasons one of the things that makes Consecrated Sphinx the premier closer in Block for, you know, big fatties is that it has that 6 toughness, whereas other creatures don't. You know, like Sunblast Angel only 5, you know, or Horde Smelter Dragon only 5. A lot of fantastic creatures, but that 6 toughness is so big.
Yeah, and we just found out for Standard that the Titans are being reprinted.
We found that Inferno Titans being reprinted.
Well, that's right. We can assume, or no, many people will assume that the whole cycle is being
Well, I think
reprinted.
it's probably safe to assume that Inferno Titan, Grave Titan, and Frost Titan are being reprinted. Right?
Why specifically those?
Which are the promos.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, I mean,
just because of the promos.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong. The odds are it's probably going to be all 5, unfortunately. But the Grave Titan, Inferno Titan, and Frost Titan are the promos for the Duels of the Planeswalkers M12. And now that Inferno Titan has actually been spoiled, where we've seen the actual card image with the new expansion symbol and everything, that's a pretty good indicator that both Grave Titan and Frost Titan are going to be in it as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of tricky because the Titans, they're super powerful, but they do squeeze out a lot of the other possible 6-drops.
Right.
However, I'm pretty open-minded because one of the things we saw was like Baneslayer Angel was reprinted from M10 to M11, and it was like night and day. I mean, in M10, Baneslayer Angel was just dominating.
Yeah.
M11, you know, things changed. The context changed, and Baneslayer was no longer the solution.
Well, it was the Titans. I mean, it was a huge reason anyway.
That's a big part of it, and the fact that, you know, there's better removal, and, you know, but the it's going to be really interesting to see if there somehow is a way for the Titans to not be as oppressive. Because it'd be really cool if we can play with cards like Elish Norn and Chancellor of the Forge and Chancellor of the Tangle and you know, Chancellor of the Drow. So many of these cool fatties. The Consecrated Sphinx.
Yeah, Consecrated Sphinx.
Absolutely.
A lot of those Praetors are really interesting.
Both the Praetors and the Chancellors, I think, are both. There's a lot of cool things you can really do with them.
Yeah. And you know, leading into this, we're talking about Dismember. Most of those don't die to Dismember. I mean, the Titans don't. Elish Norn doesn't. Sheoldred doesn't. Jin Gataxias does.
I think Sheoldred's actually pretty hot.
Yeah,
that card takes over a game.
It's pretty ridiculous.
A 6 toughness black creature already lives through Dismember, Doomblade, burn spells. I mean, honestly, there are. I mean, yeah, some number of people play Go for the Throat, but if you look, like, as long as Dismember's popular, not that many people. I mean, and Condemn doesn't do the trick because by the time you could condemn it, I mean, first of all, hopefully you've looked at their hand and you just take the Condemn out of their hand. But second of all, you've already had a chance to kill one of their creatures, and you got back one of your own creatures.
Right, it reminds me a lot, in a way, of Consecrated Sphinx, where it's like, all it needs to really do is survive one turn cycle.
Then you just take over. You're getting 2 cards a turn.
Right. So it's...
and Swamp Walk's a nice ability. I mean, there's going to be... I mean, we'll see how many people actually play Swamps, but the fact that it's straight up unblockable makes it a lot... You know, gives you another way to get in there for racing purposes. But I think one of the common plays that we're going to see in some future world where things have changed a little bit, I think we're going to see Sheoldred getting back Entomber Exarch. And Entomber Exarch, that's the one that can be a Gravedigger, or you can make your opponent discard a non-creature card from their hand.
Okay.
Which isn't just a duress, it's a duress, but you can also take land.
Wow.
Yeah, which is
I
very
didn't
important.
even think about that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize. It's super, super nice against a lot of these people to be able to, you just Entomber Exarch and take the Valakut out of their hand or something, you know?
Yeah.
Or whatever, the 5th land that they needed to be able to cast their spell.
Mimic that Entomber Exarch seems pretty good, too.
Yeah. Oh, that's hot. That's hot. And you can do both. You can do, you know, keep grave digging, keep... So I think Entomber Exarch is going to be a solid card, but sometimes you can get into these situations where you play an Entomber Exarch, you take a card out of their hand, right? You see what they're working with? Then your Entomber Exarch dies, and you play another Entomber Exarch and get back your first one, right?
Yeah.
And so you do this little dance for a little bit, as long as you can keep it up. But then eventually, later, you might end up going Sheoldred, get back Entomber Exarch, use that Entomber Exarch to get back your other Entomber Exarch, and then just hold it. So that if they can draw a Wrath or a Day of Judgment to kill your Sheoldred, get it back and start it over again.
Yeah. That seems...
Yeah, because I think these black decks, it's a legitimate plan going long, you know, in a world where there isn't as much Stoneforge Mystic for, you know, Stoneforge Mystic and Jace, you know, if there isn't quite as much of that going on, it opens up a lot of really cool things people can do.
So, I guess let me just ask you, do you think Standard will change June 20th?
I think you'd have to be delusional to think it wouldn't.
Okay.
I mean, we'll see what ends up happening, but, I mean, Magic is at this period of time where there's unprecedented number of players. People are buying cards. People are going to tournaments. People are playing a lot. People are doing all these things. I mean, the legacy scene is the strongest it's ever been. People are asking for more formats. Commander, huge. The fact that the Commander product looks like it's the perfect thing for them. I mean, Magic is at this super, super high point, and we're coming into the summer, which is traditionally a time where tournament numbers are supposed to even go up even more with people, you know, having a little bit less school, and instead we're seeing this really weird thing where legacy numbers are spiking up. Commander, people keep consistently talking about getting great turnouts for their Commander events. The draft challenge is through the roof. But Standard, I mean, this weekend might be the first weekend where the Legacy Open has a higher attendance than the Standard Open.
I think that's really likely. We have 183 players here today for Standard.
That might be that's got to be what just about the lowest, despite the fact that the turnout here is huge. There's
a lot of people.
There's a ton of people who are drafting, people who want to play in the Legacy thing tomorrow, and it just says something about the fact that the joke is not funny anymore. People, people are ready for a different format where, first of all, the Johnnies of Magic need to be able to come up with stuff.
Yeah.
Second of all,
it needs to do something to the stuff that they're coming up with.
Absolutely. And then the aspiring spikes. Not everybody has 4 Stoneforge Mystics and 4 Jace the Mind Sculptors and 4, and it's not usually like this, but when it gets to a point where there's only where it's basically a 1-deck format, that turns a lot of people off, and I think Wizards doesn't want to. I mean, they want people to be able to play with their cards, but they also don't want a situation that was like Affinity. I mean, thank God, it hasn't gotten nearly as bad as it was in terms of people just not having fun. Because at least with Caw-Blade, you get to play these real games.
Right, you actually are playing for a little while.
Right, and and you can win. It's just that the Caw-Blade deck always has the edge. And people and there's a lot of people who like the Caw-Blade mirrors, but I just think that one way or another they've got to do something.
Yeah, I think the big thing to realize is that you're not going to please everyone. It's kind of like what kind of format do the majority want, right? I mean, because there's a lot of people who love this format because it's so skill testing, because of the chess aspect of it. Michael Flores has said things like that.
I think you can't just base it on what the majority wants, because I think an awful lot of times the majority doesn't actually know what's good for them.
That's true too.
I mean, everybody says they want to have more skill. You got your wish.
Yeah, there it is. Right. I mean, wasn't it last year everybody was complaining about Jund because it wasn't skillful, because it was just you Bloodbraid Elf into win,
But as Eric Lauer is fond of saying, it was very skill testing, and most people actually failed the skill that it tested. And the skill that it tested was, are you willing to just suck it up and play Bloodbraid Elf? Because it's easy to suck it up and play Jace the Mind Sculptor Stoneforge Mystic. I mean,
Well, there's a lot less range.
It's super skill testing, and sucking it up and playing the blue deck is something that a lot of spikes are more prone to doing than a non-traditional removal spell type deck.
We don't even think of it as sucking it up at all.
Twist my arm.
Yeah. Oh, you mean let me play Islands?
No. So I think that, I mean, you want everybody to be able to play with their cards, but it'll be interesting to see what they do, because obviously, just banning cards is not. It's tough. Banning cards always. You always upset somebody.
Yeah,
but you know what? They got a lot of really smart people. One way or another. I mean, there's an argument to be made about waiting 6 months.
Yeah. It's not even. What do we got?
4 months more.
Yeah, something like
that.
Yeah,
let's say actually 4 or 5 months. I think it's 5 months now.
We have.
Okay, it's half of June. Oh, so I guess by the time they make the announcement, there would be July, August, September, and then October, right? Well,
October's already. It'll be gone, because I think.
Does it rotate? No, it doesn't, because M11. I mean, M11 doesn't rotate out until October.
Right, but it's like October 1st-ish. It's very early in October.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure, whatever the release date is for Innistrad, which I'll find right now, that would be the day that Innistrad is legal and pushes everything else out. So let's get that right now.
Yeah. So I mean, people say it's only 3 or 4 months or whatever, but at the same time.
Okay, release date September 30th. So that would be the day that Stoneforge Jace rotate out of Standard. So we have really just 3.5 months.
Yeah, so if it's 3.5 months, it's tempting to say, just suck it up for 3.5 more months. But honestly, Caw-Blade was broken in Paris.
Yeah,
that was over 3.5 months ago.
Right, it was people are already sick of it.
It's pretty clear that attendance numbers have been set. And we'll see. I mean, if nothing else, people want to play Magic right now. People are going to be playing Legacy. People are going to play Commander. People are going to. I mean, it sounds like people are excited about exploring the possibility of Modern or Overextended or some kind of thing that's somewhere between Extended and Legacy.
Right.
Some eternal format that doesn't rotate, but uses some of those cards that right now are pushed out because of the fact that Legacy is all Brainstorm or Combo or it's got these really, really aggressive things that set such a high bar that you don't end up getting to play with cards like Cryptic Command.
Right. Well, Chris Cronenberger plays with Cryptic Command. Have you seen his mono blue list that he's been playing in Legacy?
And people get to play a little bit of Cryptic
Command. But I understand. It's a questionable card,
Yeah, it's just fringe, because the format's so powerful. It's so interesting to see the dynamic between Jace the Mind Sculptor and Cryptic Command. I mean, because if you look, both Jace and Cryptic Command completely dominated their block and standard formats. But then in Extended, when they're both legal, Cryptic Command has been, has had the edge. Both have been super good, but Cryptic Command has had the edge over Jace, a small edge. But then in Legacy, it goes way the other way.
Yeah.
Jace is one of the best cards in all of Legacy, and obviously in Vintage as well. Whereas Cryptic Command sees only fringe play in those formats.
Yeah, I think.
Is it
Chris
just?
What were you gonna say?
Is that a function of Jace being good with good cheap spells, and Jace is good no matter what spells you're playing, whereas Cryptic Command gets scales depending on how expensive of cards other people play.
That seems like a good theory.
Could you imagine if Cryptic Command was legal in this format? I mean, or instead of some of these cards, because I mean, if you had Cryptic Command, you don't want to play Primeval Titan against somebody who's going to just go Cryptic Command it.
Right. It's loses a lot. Those Titans aren't so exciting with Cryptic Command around. But we do have Sleep. I'm just kidding. So, all right. I agree with you. Well, here's the thing. I certainly would be excited to see something happen on June 20th. I'm also fine with the way it is because I actually enjoy watching the Caw-Blade mirrors, but maybe that's I know I'm in the minority for that. What would be your choice? Because what I said was about Stoneforge Mystic. That's my guess as to what is most likely to be banned. But then you brought up what's there to stop the Jace decks, and I think that's where we got cut off to go to the match. So, do you feel like Jace needs to be?
I don't know. Banned? I think this is a solution. This is the type of format that might need some multi-pronged approach.
Okay. So
it's really tough.
Multiple cards then?
I don't know. Something has to be done different because the problem is if you just ban Jace, the Stoneforge decks take over, and if you just ban Stoneforge Mystic, the Jace decks take over, and if you ban both, does Valakut take over? I mean, what is it? It's a really slippery slope, Yeah. So, I would have to I think that Wizards is at an advantaged position because they have a little bit more insight into, for instance, what's in M12.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in M12 that will help one of the pillars somewhere along the lines. But whatever they end up doing, I got faith that they're going to figure out a way to make the format. If you have to ban cards, you have to ban cards.
Right.
And it's not like Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor aren't getting played in every other format.
Yeah. If you want to play with them, you can play with them.
Right. There's not going to be a shortage. It's not like these cards are not playable. It's just that right now, almost no cards are in Standard are playable because only Jace and Stoneforge Mystic are.
Right.
So, I don't know. And there's other cards to consider. I mean, some people talk about things like, do you take Preordain just to try to hurt them, or Squadron Hawk, or Sword of Feast and Famine and Batterskull just to make Stoneforge worse on the back end?
Right.
Or do you, and some people talk about including Valakut and things, because the last time when Affinity got hit, they nuked a lot of cards.
Oh, what was all the artifact lands, the black, what's his name?
The Disciple of the Vault?
Disciple of the Vault, I couldn't remember his name.
Yep.
And then what, Ravager?
And Ravager.
Yeah.
Ravager, Disciple of the Vault, and all of the artifact